Evan and Tiki on the Fan, a very, very, very busy show. David Stearns has made a miscue. Aaron Boone gives us a hint on kind of a dark horse third base candidate. We'll get to the baseball a little bit later on. But I have to admit I'm very, very jealous of the New York Giant fan right now because earlier today, Jordan Ranan, who's a fine reporter, said that multiple league sources feel like the Giants are thinking and pursuing a trade up to number 1 where they would select Cam Ward as their quarterback. And it's funny that report came out this morning from Jordan because last night I was in very deep thought. And I got my wife involved who doesn't know sports, doesn't even like sports. And I said, honey, I got to make a big decision tonight. And she said, what's that decision? I said, I want to really strongly have a plan for the Jets at quarterback. Because I don't know what Aaron Glenn's plan is. I don't know what Darren Muji's plan is. But I, as a passionate Jet fan, want to have a plan. And after careful review and careful thought and going through the free agent veterans and watching some YouTube, I want Cam Ward. I want the New York Jets at number 7 to pursue the big swing for the fences, as they call it, and pursue Cam Ward. Because, and let me explain this real quick before we get into the nitty-gritty of it, like why at the end of the day I prefer Cam Ward over Kirk Cousins or Justin Fields or Russell Wilson or any other stopgap option you want. If the New York Jets are going to get where I'm dreaming they go someday, they need a franchise quarterback. You could argue the Giants don't in the NFC. I don't know how good Jalen Hurts truly is. I don't know how good Jared Goff truly is. But in the AFC, and I'm not talking about making the playoffs. That's cute. That's the goal in the short term. But the long-term goal is to win a championship, which means you have to get past prime Josh Allen.
Right.
You've got to get past prime Lamar Jackson. And, oh, yeah, I left the final boss for the end. You got to get past prime Patrick Mahomes. You are not doing that with stopgaps. You're not doing that with also-rans. You're doing it by swinging for the freaking fences. And so I want my football team, the New York Jets, to take one hell of a monster swing. And to me, the monster swing is Cam Ward.
The question is, how do you get to Cam Ward? Now, he's not falling. And it's obvious that there are multiple teams that are interested that are all in front of you. The Raiders immediately in front of you. The Giants, obviously, at 3. The Tennessee Titans are in the market, I would guess, for a quarterback. And we kind of don't know the plan of the Cleveland Browns, but let's just say that they're there as well. So there are 4 teams. So only basically 2 other teams don't want a quarterback in the top 6 or 7, including the New York Jets. And so how are you getting there? That's the only challenge for the Jets if you want to think about going to number 1, especially if there's competition from teams like the Giants, who if you're the Tennessee Titans and you don't want to fall too far back, you just fall 2 spots back.
No, I agree. The Giants have an edge. If the Giants are heavily pursuing going from 3 to 1, their edge is that they can tell the Tennessee Titans, hey, look, we're guaranteeing you an elite generational kind of talent, not at the quarterback position.
100%.
Because all of a sudden, Abdul Carter or Travis Hunter's on your team. You can guarantee them that because you're taking a quarterback at number 1. So I admit that the Giants have an edge. What I think the Jets have an edge on, and I don't want to do this, I'm saying I may have to. And that is offering a really talented young player who's not being paid that much money yet. And I've flirted with this idea.
It feels so baseball to me.
Well, but it's true.
I know it is true, but it feels so baseball to me. And would Jet fans be okay with it? If you say, all right, we'll give you our 1 and Sauce Gardner. Because, by the way, it doesn't make horrible sense because you got to pay both of those guys.
Right.
And talking about Garrett Wilson and Sauce Gardner, and that's coming pretty soon.
Yes.
And so if you're the Jets, and it seems like they're looking at the old regime's roster construction and just kind of slowly dismantling. Not anything, grossly profound, but it's, all right, Devontae Adams, we're not going to keep you. We already told Aaron Rodgers we don't want you. Now it's Alan Lazard. Go look for a trade if you can find it. If not, we're going to cut you as well.
Right.
And those are just the 3 big names offensively, but I'm sure there's going to be a few more of those that get sent the door for the New York Jets as they rebuild what they envision as their roster. And so making a determination on Sauce Gardner and Garrett Wilson, I think it's probably more Sauce than it is Garrett.
It is Sauce because if I'm building and taking this massive swing on a young quarterback, I want them to have Garrett Wilson right off the top.
You got to have a young star that's under team control.
No doubt. Like, to me, making that kid's life easier is priority number one. The Jets have failed at that many times when they've drafted a young quarterback. I don't want to trade Sauce Gardner. I want to make that clear. I don't want to. I don't want to trade Quinnen Williams. I don't want to. But if need be, to take this massive swing that I think the Jets are in position to take, that's something that they can offer that other teams can't. What would I rather do? I'd rather trade picks. And I know what the cost is. I remember back years ago to when Jared Goff was drafted by the Los Angeles Rams, and they had to trade up from 14 to number 1.
Yeah.
Think about that kind of massive jump that the Rams had to make to get Jared Goff. They went from 14 to 1. That was the biggest jump to the number 1 overall pick that we had seen. The Jets are trying to do half that. They're trying to get 7 to 1.
Yeah.
So it's a jump. It's a big jump, Tiki, but it's not unprecedented.
No, it's not. But what feels unprecedented is trading picks and current players. Like, I know it's got to have happened at some point, but I just can't think off the top of my head when a up-and-coming under team control star has been traded for draft elevation. I know it's probably happened, but I can't think of it. And so it just, that feels the unprecedented side. And so that goes back to the very first concern that I had which is a good idea for you, right? For the Jet fan. Go get the best quarterback that's available in this year's draft and then build around him and develop him, and hopefully he becomes your star. But we can't get there from 7, especially with at least 3 other teams, maybe 4 above us looking for quarterbacks.
It's going to be tough. The package to get from 7 to 1, it's going to be costly. But to me, here's why it's worth it. I do believe in the AFC. If you want to get where we're dreaming of going, you can't be average at quarterback. You can't be. And so what are the other short-term options? The short-term options, which can make sense financially, is, hey, bring in Kirk Cousins. He's not going to make any money, assuming he's eventually released by Atlanta, and I'm believing that he will. I don't care what the Falcons say publicly. They're not paying $40 million for a backup. So I get why, hey, in the short term, economically, hey, get Kirk Cousins on a 1-year deal. I even understand the appeal of, hey, let me take a flyer on Justin Fields. I understand the short-term dealing of Russell Wilson. I get all that. But while that may be good enough to get the Jets to, let's say, an 8-9 win, fun little season, how did we get to the ultimate goal? The ultimate goal is winning a championship. And in this conference, and in this division, a division that as of right now features Josh Allen, already a superstar, Drake May be on his way to a superstar, and I like Tua. I think the ability to stay healthy is the biggest question with him. I don't think for the next 5 years we're competing with also-rans at quarterback. Like, you've got to take that big risk.
Yeah, and it's probably a couple years down the line that this is going to show itself, but you also risk him not being that guy. Well, you also risk him not being Josh Allen level or Pat Mahomes level, or not even Jaden Daniels level. Like, if you risk and you miss, then it really sets you back. Well, this is, by the way, this is the case with any team taking a quarterback in the top 5 or 10. If you miss, it's going to set you very far back.
Of course it will.
And so sometimes it's almost better, and history's changed and it's different now from when I was playing, but I think the best thing that the Giants did was not reach in 98 or 99 when instead we went to Kerry Collins, right? When a veteran who was highly drafted, had his issues in Carolina, as we all know, but he was a vet who stabilized and took us where we needed to go. Obviously, we lost in the Super Bowl, but we got there.
No, I get you. So I signed for that right now.
Right, exactly. Now, the question is, what's the better route? Is it to find that vet who can stabilize you and give you solid production, or take a shot, and it's a heavy shot because you're giving up an asset and potential draft picks, et cetera, just to go get a young kid who might not make it?
Yeah, he may not make it, but if you go conservative, what are you waiting for? Eventually, you're going to have to take your swing at a young franchise quarterback. And if you believe in Aaron Glenn, I believe in Aaron Glenn. If you believe in the talent on this roster, and let's say you get average to decent quarterback play out of some kind of veteran, Kirk Cousins, maybe it's Tyrod Taylor, maybe he just has a really good year, and the Jets win 8 or 9 games, are they in position next year to draft their franchise quarterback? The answer is no. They can be further away from picking at the top of the draft. If I'm Aaron Glenn and Darren Muji, I look at this roster, I look at myself in the mirror, I'm confident in my coaching ability, and I say to myself, I'm not picking top 10 again.
Yeah.
When am I picking top 10 again?
Sean gave me an example. He was right. The Chicago Bears did this, and they got DJ Moore. So, I mean, he's a good wide receiver. I mean, he was great in Carolina. And so they did it, to your point, and they ended up getting DJ Moore and ended up getting a quarterback eventually to go with him.
Yeah, I don't love the idea of trading already proven stars in this league. I'm just saying that can be an enticer that other teams don't have if you're trying to trade up from 7 to 1. But look at the grander picture to my fellow Jet fans. If they're going to win anything, they need to finally find the thing we've been looking for decades, a franchise quarterback. Average quarterback play, while it may get you 8 or 9 wins, and we may have a fun season, and sure, you've got to walk before you run, to eventually compete for a championship, which is the ultimate goal. That's what we all want as sports fans. They're going to have to do better than that. And I do believe in Aaron Glenn. I don't think they're picking 7th next year. So if they're not, and we think this team is going to be better, and they're going to win some games, this may be their best shot.
Yeah, this is what the Atlanta did.
Yeah.
With Terry Fontenot. They believed that they weren't, and obviously Raheem Morris is the new head coach, they believed that they weren't going to be picking high in the very near or long-term future. Let's take our quarterback now.
Let's go for it. Because when I go into the start of this season as a Jet fan, while Kirk Cousins could give them nice average quarterback play, and yeah, they could win 8 or 9 games. That's certainly possible. Don't you want to dream about the possibility that they finally found their guy? And don't be afraid because they haven't. Because Zach Wilson stunk. Because they screwed up Sam Darnold. Because Mark Sanchez gave us a tease but never put it all together. Or Geno Smith. Or Browning Nagel. Or whatever other example you want to come up with. I get it. The Jet history stinks. I'll be the first to tell you that.
Right.
But I'm also a believer in swinging for the fences. And I think the Jets are better equipped to do it than even the Giants are. Because the Giants are in this spot where if they don't get wins in year 1, or they don't see real kind of growth from a young quarterback that they draft, the administration's going to be fired.
That's exactly the way.
This administration has that time.
Yeah.
No, that's exactly why they shouldn't be doing this.
Why?
Because they do have this time. This may be a one true elite quarterback draft. We could debate on 2 or 3. Evan, to mortgage the future, I know you don't want to hear this. I think this has to be a major evaluation year for Moogie, and Aaron Glenn in this spot. And if I'm the Jets, I take the realism of let's go play with Tyrod Taylor. We'll probably add somebody else. If the draft falls our way, we want to take a shot on whoever that 3rd or 4th quarterback could be, fine. But you may be in a spot without trading up, and I hate to break this to you, where you're picking top 5 next year in a deeper quarterback draft, the likes of which we saw last year.
But that's where we disagree.
You're never giving up picks, you might get a better prospect.
Sean, that's where I disagree. And I know that you can mock this. You have every right to. And maybe even some of my fellow Jet fans will mock this. I think they're too talented. I think their biggest problem the last few years is they've been terribly coached. And maybe I'm being naive, but I believe in Aaron Glenn. So I think if they are well coached, if I'm right that their coaching just made a major upgrade with the hiring of Aaron Glenn, then I completely reject the notion of drafting in the top 5. That's a part of why I do want to swing for the fences now. I think they're going to be good. I think they've got talent on this roster, even if it's not good enough, to not be picking 7th.
Yeah.
And I think the longer you wait and you kick the can down the road, the more difficult it becomes and the more desperate you become. And one last thing about mortgaging the future, I reject that notion too. What you're doing if you trade up is you're mortgaging next year's draft. I admit that.
Right.
Because you're probably giving up a first-round pick next year. I get that. That's one draft.
But if you get your quarterback, then you're not necessarily worried about it. And I said the same thing about the Giants. If they decide to go to number 1, end up having to give their next year's first round as well, as opposed to their second rounder this year, first and second rounder this year, because you already have your quarterback.
It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
It's worth it. Like, the one thing nobody could argue is if the Jets trade up and they select Cam Ward, and we're right that Cam Ward is the guy, then nobody's going to care what they gave up. And if it doesn't work, you're right. It's a big swing and a miss. Obviously, there's a risk anytime you take a young player and say, all right, you're our future. You're our franchise quarterback. But that's what I want the Jets to do. And 3 years ago, Tiki, it was the opposite. I said, go get a veteran. Time to win. Well, here we are. The cycle has changed. I'm back to dreaming big. And I think the Jets are equipped to do it. And I hope they have the guts to do it. And Giant fans, you're right there, too. Because apparently, your organization's looking at it, too. And the guy they're eyeing is Cam Ward. We'll get to your calls next at 888-808-1019. Plus, why is the other quarterback, Shedeur Sanders, now being badmouthed? We'll try to address what the heck's going on with him. All live from the Town Fair Tire Studios, powered by Town Fair Tire. Nobody beats Town Fair Tire. Nobody.